Well, guys, with Toy Story 4 finally being released in theaters, it seems like it's the end of an era for Pixar and the beginning of a brand new one. With their new movie Onward coming out next year, they're planning on focusing on more original ideas instead of going on with sequels. And so it seems like the perfect time to celebrate the 21 films that came before from 1995 to 2019. And that's what we're going to do today. We're going to be celebrating Pixar by ranking their best and worst movies from worst to best. So anyway, let's get started. First off, before we get started, I want to say that Pixar is one of my favorite animation studios of all time. The creativity, love, and passion that goes into making these movies just makes them so much better, and they're just filled with such delight, family fun, and touch on themes that other kids' movies just don't touch on at all. I love Pixar, it's one of my favorites, and I want to celebrate them here. Starting off the countdown with number 21, we have Cars 2. Now, when it comes to Cars 2, I understand why people don't like this film and would say that it is a bad Pixar film. But I don't completely hate this film. I think there's a lot of this film that I actually do kind of enjoy or at least admire. And one of those things is that it doesn't just do the first movie again. It is doing something completely different with Mater as the main character and focusing more on a spy thriller aspect than the racing. And that's kind of cool. However, the problem comes in the fact that Mater is the main character and he is more a secondary character than a lead character, and just being the lead in this movie just doesn't work. The comedy is more garnered towards children. Not much here is for adults, which is what Pixar does best, is balancing between kid humor and adult humor and just combining them all together. And this one is just made for the kids. I think this movie would have serviced better if it was a made-for-DVD sequel instead of a full-fledged sequel to be released in theaters. It's not the worst thing ever. It's just not very creative and just not a great film overall. Coming in at number 20, we have Cars 3, which I think is very much a superior film to Cars 2. I think this is a fun film and goes back to the racing stuff that we liked from the first Cars film and goes in a more darker tone, honestly, than I was actually expecting. We all remember the trailers of Lightning McQueen basically getting destroyed on the racetrack, and I do really like this film. I like the characters for the first time. I actually really do like Lightning McQueen in this film, and I like all the new characters we're introduced to, such as the yellow car, and I think it's overall just a fun film. And it is much more somber than the first Cars film, and definitely the second Cars film, with a first act that is very sad, very depressing at times, and it's really fun. However, the problem with this film is that it is just kind of the first film all over again and doesn't do much new in that respect aside from taking itself a bit more seriously. And at number 19, we round out the Cars trilogy with Cars. I actually really enjoy Cars a lot. I think it's a fun film. However, when it comes to the main character, Lightning McQueen is just not my favorite when it comes to this film. I think he's just not that likable of a character. And what really helps the movie for me is the animation and the colorful cast of characters we have in this film. I really enjoy a lot of the stories in this film with these characters. I love the character of Doc. I just like the idea of setting the film in this small little town. And honestly, the Cars thing never really bothered me. Yes, it's kind of disappointing when you go from something like The Incredibles with great animation with human characters and then go to Cars. I think it's an interesting idea, and I do have a lot of fun with this movie, and I don't think it deserves some of the flack it does get. However, it is one of the weaker Pixar films overall, but I still find it really enjoyable, and I can sit down and watch it anytime. At number 18, we have The Good Dinosaur, the black sheep of the Pixar fold, and this film I actually really admire and really enjoyed too, and it's sad that this movie had so much trouble in its production cycle because I think we could have gotten not just a good movie, but a great movie with so many good ideas. I love the character of Arno. I love his relationship with the little boy. And though the film is very familiar by taking cues from The Lion King, it doesn't feel old. It's almost a timeless story at this point, and I still find it a lot of fun. The animation in this film is some of the best Pixar has ever done, photorealistic. The movie is beautiful, and what really sells it for me, though the film can be a little bland for the most part in terms of the film and the fact that it is a very familiar story, there's this one scene in the third act when Arno sees the ghost of his father that just brought me to tears and made this something really special. And I wish there was more scenes like that in this film because that really did show greatness. At number 17, we have A Bug's Life, which is, yes, it's really this low on the list. I don't really care for A Bug's Life that much. I found it really enjoyable and fun, but compared to other Pixar films, I think it's on the weaker side, especially when it came out, because this had to compete with Toy Story, which is one of the greatest animated films of all time, and this film just doesn't do it for me. It's just ants being ants. However, I can say that this film is really funny and really colorful. I love the animation style, I love the character of Flick, I love the circus troupe, and I will say that Kevin Spacey as Hopper is really a good villain. He's one of my favorite villains in the Pixar movies. And also, I really like the third act. I think it's very creative and a lot of fun and really does save the film for me. Guys, this is a fun film. I think it's disposable, but it's not a bad Pixar film. It's just creative, but just not up to par with something like Toy Story. At number 16, we have Brave, which is a film that really surprised me, and it doesn't feel exactly like a Pixar film. In a lot of ways, it does feel like a DreamWorks movie, but to me, that just kind of shows that the director of this movie came from DreamWorks. The director of this movie is the director of one of my favorite animated films of all time, Prince of Egypt, and I love seeing her working on this. I love the story of this film. I love the character of Merida, and the animation in this film is absolutely gorgeous. Some of the best Pixar has ever done. I think they even had to build a new engine to make this movie, which is something really cool. I think we have something that's a little underrated here. Yeah, the stuff with the mother turning into a bear, we've seen it before with movies like Brother Bear, and it's all about learning a lesson, but it is a sweet lesson that I think kids can gravitate towards. And it's just a really fun film that's beautifully animated, some great voice acting, and I think this is criminally underrated. I think this is a fun film. At number 15, we have Monsters University, which tells the story of how Mike and Sully met each other in college. Guys, this is a really funny film. It takes tropes from movies like Animal House and other college movies, and it's just a all-around funny comedy film that, is it a movie we really needed? No, I don't think we really needed this film, but I'm glad we got it because it's funny, and also at the very end of the movie in the third act, it becomes really sweet and has a really good third act. I love the characters in this film. I love seeing John Goodman and Billy Crystal back as these characters. It's just so fun to watch, and it's a very underrated Pixar film as well. Next on the list at number 14, we have Incredibles 2, which people might be surprised is on this list this low. Yes, I think this is a really enjoyable, fun superhero film that does a lot of things right. However, I just don't think it matches the first film in its quality. However, I think it is still a fun movie with great characters, incredibly good action, and is beautifully animated as well. I love the characters. I love the villain in this movie. I think it's really interesting, a cool design, and I just like being in this world again because if there was one Pixar film that was deserving of a sequel, I think it would have been Incredibles because, well, it sets up a sequel in the ending scene of that movie, and we finally get that here, which is something I really thought was cool, that it begins where the first movie ended, which I thought was really cool and clever. Guys, this is a fun film overall. However, I just don't think it's as good as the first Incredibles. Speaking of The Incredibles, at number 13, we have The Incredibles. Guys, this is a awesome movie with great action. And where the second movie fails in a lot of ways, I think this movie really succeeds, especially with the villain and the relationship he has with our main character. I love the characters in this film. I love the action. I think it's even better than the second movie. I love the animation. I thought this was a really cool movie back in the day, and Brad Bird did such a great job making this movie. I think it's a fun family film that teaches you great lessons. It's a great action movie and really a great superhero movie overall. At number 12, we have Finding Dory, which is a sequel that I was really excited for. I love the first movie Finding Nemo, and I thought that this was the perfect way to continue it because the fact that Dory is got this condition, and so it just made sense that the next movie would be about finding her. And what they did with this film, in many ways, it can be cliche with the missing parents and having to find them. However, the way the story is told is very beautifully done. Dory is such a lovable character, and where Cars 2 failed in the fact that Mater was the main character when he is clearly a secondary character, this movie really does work. Dory feels like the main character, and she feels perfectly qualified to be the main character of this film, and that's what I really enjoyed. I think this movie is hilarious. It's one of the funniest Pixar films to date. It's a lot of fun. The third act has me laughing, crying, and it's just a beautifully animated movie. Andrew Stanton did a great job with this film. He's just an awesome director of animation. This is a fun sequel, and I'm glad to say that it is really good. At number 11, we have Ratatouille, which is a beautiful movie and one of Pixar's most beautiful looking films. The way they capture Paris is just amazing with all the lights, just the orange glow of everything. It's beautiful to look at. I love the story of Remy trying to become a chef. I think that's an interesting, fun idea. Also, this movie makes me incredibly hungry while watching it. I love food, and this movie is just filled with food. I love the character of Remy, as I said before. I like the villain. I think it's an interesting idea and story. It's really funny, it's heartfelt, and just a great film. I think this is Brad Bird's best film under the Pixar catalog. This is a great film, his masterpiece with Pixar, and it's just a fun film, guys, and I love it. At number 10, we have Monsters, Inc. Guys, this is a very important film to me because I used to watch this film all the time as a kid. I love the character of Mike and Sully, and we get to see them for the first time here. I love their characterizations. I love the chemistry between the two actors, and I love the story of Sully and Boo. I think it is so sweet. I love the character of Boo. I think this is a overall an interesting idea that is really, really cool. Pete Docter did an excellent job with this film. This really does show the greatness that he would soon go on to, because Pete Docter is one of my favorite animation directors of all time. He does a great job with this film, creating this very beautiful, interesting world of monsters and how they scare kids. I love the third act of this film, and the very end of the movie always brings me to tears. At number 9, we have Finding Nemo, which is a great Andrew Stanton film. I love Andrew Stanton and Pete Docter. I think they're some of the best animators in the business, and this movie is just a breath of beautiful fresh air and is so beautifully done. The animation is wonderful. The idea of having this film take place under the sea with fish just brings so many possibilities of just beautiful animation, showing just colors and colors and colors. I love the character of Marlin, Dory, Nemo, and all the rest. I think they are just so perfect here. I love this movie. I love the adventure they go on. I love seeing the sharks. I love the fish tank scenes. I love the third act of this film when it comes to the dentist office and with Darla. I think it's such a fun sequence of events. Guys, this is a fun film that is completely timeless. It's one of Pixar's best, and I love it. At number 8, we have Up, which is a fantastic film, and I love that it's considered one of the best animated films of all time. I love that it was up for nominations. I think it's a great film. I love the characters. I love the idea of this house floating in the air with balloons. The movie is colorful. It's fun and funny, especially once we get to the second act and we meet characters such as Doug the dog, who just brings so many laughs. I love the final fight on the Zeppelin. I think it's a really fun finale. I love our characters, and the first act and the first 10 minutes of this movie are so beautifully done. Pete Docter did such a good job of showing comedy, drama, and just breaking your heart in the first act of this film. It is one of the best first acts in a Pixar film. This is a great film. It's a great film for adults, a great film for kids. It's adventurous, it's sad, and it's just a fun Pixar film. At number 7, we have Coco, which was a film that really surprised me when I saw it. I love the character of Miguel. I love his relationship with his family, how his struggle is with his music. And speaking of the music in this film is absolutely beautiful. I love the song Remember Me, both versions, in fact, and I think it's just a very sweet movie about learning where you come from and the importance of family. I love the adventure. I love the animation with this film. I think it is, again, one of Pixar's best looking films. I think it's colorful, it's bright, and it's just a sweet film overall, with a third act that will get you crying. I know I cried a lot. It's funny, guys, and just has everything that a Pixar film should have in it. Guys, this is a great movie. It's one of my favorites. At number 6, we have Toy Story 3. Yes, Toy Story 3 is just not in the top 5 for me. This is a great film, though, guys. This is a really good film. And for a long time, this was the end of the Toy Story series. And it was really satisfying. And the great thing about it is the first act of the film really hits home, and the third act is just, it breaks your heart, guys. The third act of this film is very well done. It's heartfelt, it's sad, and it feels like a farewell to Andy. However, I feel that the second act of the movie is where the movie kind of struggles. Though it is fun, there's a lot of things in it that just aren't up to par with those first two films, and even the fourth film. I think it's a fun film, guys. It's heartfelt. I love the characters of Woody, Buzz, Jesse, Rex, Ham, and all the rest. I think this film is hilarious, and when it needs to be serious, it is serious. I love it, guys. And at number 5, we have Toy Story 4, the newest Toy Story film, and possibly the final one. Guys, I loved this movie and thought it did such justice to the character of Woody, focusing mostly on Woody, other than the rest of the characters, who got their farewell and their big ensemble in the third film. Focusing on Woody in this film felt right and feels like an epilogue to this series, and I really, really like that. I love the characters in this film. I love the new characters. I think this film is absolutely hilarious. I love what they do with the villain of this movie and the way they send off Woody, his character, and his relationship with Buzz is just beautifully told. I've got my review up on YouTube right now. You guys should go check that out if you haven't to really get my full thoughts on the movie. At number 4, we have WALL-E, which is Andrew Stanton's masterpiece. Guys, I love this movie, and it's a great, beautifully animated film that has a story that's really interesting, and I love that the movie, for about 40 minutes of the movie, has absolutely no dialogue whatsoever. It's just Wally and Eve on Earth, and then the rest of the movie takes place on the space station with the humans as they're trying to go back to Earth. And it's a beautifully done story. I love the character of Wally, and this movie really does remind me of 2001: A Space Odyssey, especially in its structure, where we have stuff taking place on Earth with no dialogue, and then we go to space where there is dialogue. And there's also the evil AI that is trying to stop everybody. It's a really great film, guys. It's sweet and has a very powerful ending. I also love the music in this film. Also, the use of the Hello Dolly music is really good. It gets stuck in your head. The movie is just a great movie, guys. And now we are down to the top 3, guys, and with number 3, we have Toy Story 2, which is one of the greatest sequels of all time. Guys, this takes the first movie and does something new and fresh, and the stuff they do with Woody is really interesting. I love what they do with him. I love his journey throughout this film. I think this is a fun film, guys, and on top of that, this is a really funny film. It might be the funniest Pixar film ever. This has comedy gold all through it, especially during the bloopers, during the credits for this movie. It's just all around a funny film, and the animation after the first one is incredible that just after a few years, the animation got even better. And I love the characters in the film. I love seeing them again. And I love the new characters we're introduced to, such as Jessie and Bullseye. I love the song When She Loved Me. I think that scene is so well done, so beautiful, so sad. I love the third act of this film, guys. I just love this movie. There's literally nothing wrong with this movie. It's just not as good as the last 2 movies on this list. At number 2, guys, we have Toy Story, the original. How could it not be this high on the list? This is a fantastic movie. I used to watch this film all the time as a kid. It was always Toy Story and Toy Story 2 I would rewatch over and over, and I definitely watched this one the most, and I think this is one of Pixar's best films, and possibly its best film. I love the characters, I love the story, I love the interesting world and the idea that toys can come to life, and I think that's really cool. I love the story of Woody and Buzz. I love how Woody gets jealous. I love how Buzz thinks he's really a space ranger. I love the adventure they go on. And the finale of this film, when they're flying through the sky, just brings tears to me. I think it's a great finale. Guys, there's literally nothing wrong with this movie. I think this is one of those instances where this is a perfect film, guys. I love Toy Story 1. And guys, now we come to the moment we've all been waiting for. What is my number one favorite Pixar film? And it is Inside Out. Guys, this is Pete Docter's masterpiece of a film. This is a masterfully done movie with so many great things. It is one of my favorite animated films of all time and one of my favorite movies of all time. This is a great film, guys, that really hits home for me. Guys, I love the first Toy Story film. It will always be a part of me. It's one of my favorite films also of all time. It's a great movie, but there was something about Inside Out that really hit home for me, and I think that has to do with the idea of emotions, which, if you guys know me, I'm a pretty big emotional person. I'm a big old softie, so this film was basically made for me. I love the character of joy and sadness. I love their journey of discovery as they learn that you can have the sad moments and the happy moments, and they almost go hand in hand. I love the character of Riley. I think she's just a great, wonderful, fake human being. I love the dad in this film. I love the animation, the story, the bing bong scene brings me to tears. The third act of this film is just beautifully done. And I think this movie is just very, very creative. Guys, this is my favorite Pixar film by far. It will probably stay that way, hopefully, because I don't want to change this list. I think this is a great movie, guys. It's one of the best animated films of all time, and it's one of my favorite films of all time. Well, guys, that is it for my list of the best to worst Pixar films. I hope you enjoyed this video, and maybe you agree with my list. You probably don't, but I want to know what your list is, guys. What would you rank the Pixar films best to worst? I want to know. Put them down in the comments and share them, because I want to have a conversation down in the comments to really know what you guys think. Was I completely off? Was I completely wrong? Or was I just right? Or do you just tolerate my list overall? Guys, I thought this was a lot of fun to do. I've really been wanting to do this for a while, and now that Toy Story 4 is finally out, it seemed like the perfect time to do this. But anyway, guys, that's really all I've got for you. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next review.